Cthulhu Jack.
Before there was Rick and Michonne, before there was Sean, there was Jim.
Hello!
Played by the peaky blinding, atomic bomb wielding actor Cillian Murphy. In this adrenaline-pumping, not zombie movie, 2002's 28 Days Later. I had not revisited this film since it first hit the cinema, and only remembered the infamous Westminster Bridge and downtown empty London sequences. So discovering this DVD gem in my library once again, I thought we would grab our bat and hop in a cab for the 27-mile trip north of Manchester. 28 Days Later opens when a group of animal activists decide that it would be better to release contaminated monkeys into the populace than listen to the babbling scientists warning them about
The chimps are infected. They're highly contagious. They've been given an inhibitor.
TV screens littered with atrocities that were actually happening at the time. We jump ahead 28 days later and are met with a drugged-out Jim in his birthday suit. Jim's delusional self gathers enough faculties and makes it out of the abandoned hospital, weaving his way through the empty London streets. The music here with the guitar slowly picking up as the pace under each frame moves the film along swimmingly. Jim enters a church.
Hello?
Where he comes across bodies and baddies, in particular a priest who is acting a little grabby. Jim pops him one as more infected are awakened to his presence. On the run, Jim meets up with Selena, played by Naomie Harris, and Mark, played by Noah Huntley.
I've got some bad news.
Two survivors that aid Jim in his escape and hide him out long enough to fill him in on what he's missed. We discover Jim was a bike messenger who ended up in the hospital after getting pegged by a car. Unable to fully comprehend the current situation, he wants to visit his parents to make sure they're safe. Mark and Naomie first dash his hopes, but ultimately decide to aid him on his quest. To much of Jim's grim discovery, he does find his parents' body together in a mummified embrace. They decided to take their own lives and left Jim a gut-punching note. Jim, Naomie, and Mark decide to spend the night. Jim lights a candle which transports him into a daydream of his parents that was shot on Super 8 film and comes across almost ethereal. This ends up causing two infected to break in at just the right killjoy moment. Once all are taken out, Mark quickly tries to cover up a wound he sustained.
Mark?
Naomie leaps across the room and viciously hacks him to death before he turns. Most modern, quote, zombie fare, the protagonist usually waits for the person to turn before they do anything. Naomie understands the dangers and how quickly things can go south with the slightest hesitation. Her and Jim vacate and soon come across Frank, played with tremendous heart by Brendan Gleeson, and his daughter Hannah, played by Megan Burns, who actually left acting after this movie and became a popular goth singer known as Betty Curse.
What if someone found you with your feet up off the ground?
I'll leave links to some of her music below. Frank convinces Jim and Naomie to travel north of Manchester, with he and his daughter to a military outpost. This information comes from a pre-recorded message. A reluctant Naomie is convinced, and they begin their journey. During this time, Jim wanders into a small abandoned convenience store, discovering the deceased owners and their much-alive infected child, who Jim sends along off this mortal coil. It's his first kill, and I like how he had to prove it to himself, and do it without any pomps and circumstance to the others. All done silently until he confesses it to Major West later on, played to perfect perfection by the, quote, all hope is lost mentality of Christopher Eccleston.
But you had to. Otherwise, he'd have killed you.
Before that, Jim and the others arrive at the military outpost mentioned in the recording to nothing but desolation and crows who peck away at the remaining infected corpses. When Frank... oh, poor Frank, goes to shoo the scavengers off a meat puppet, a blood droplet descends, nailing him square in the eye. Man, my heart really sank here. I had forgotten how Frank turned. This really bummed me out.
Dad?
Especially once they make it to the last stand with Major West and his band of unhinged and horny men. As you would suspect, things downgrade from there. 28 Days Later is better than I remembered, and after the events of these last few years, it seems to hit a lot closer to home. So if you're in the mood for a night of intense non-zombie rage, I suggest you revisit 28 Days Later. It feels a little different now than it did back in 2002, maybe even a little scarier. Until next time. If you enjoyed 28 Days Later, you may want to check out Berserkers Solo Island. This completed 8-issue limited series from Darkside Media is now available online. Digital downloads and floppies are available with fast shipping. So click links below to be notified. Many thanks for the support, and Hail Cthulhu!